Good evening, and welcome to the Sunday show on Hromadske International, the only primetime TV program explaining the Eastern European geopolitical storm in English. I'm Nina Jankovic.
And I'm Maxim Aristavi. Thanks so much for joining us this evening with us to a guest co-host for tonight. We have a lot on this show tonight. We're going to cover the ongoing development with the biggest anti-corruption trial that Ukraine has seen since the Maidan revolution. As well, we will take you to Azerbaijan, Georgia, Balkans, and other developments, plus Eurovision controversy as well. Well, don't forget to follow all the developments on our website and .hromadske.ua. You can find all the extended interviews from tonight's shows and all the other reports and exclusive journalism by Hromadske. And as well, follow us on Twitter for recent developments, including the Nazirov case, which is huge at the moment, trending in Ukraine. Follow for a live broadcast, text broadcast of this show as well. We will be back in a second. Well, boy, it's very, very intense night in Ukraine today because of the development with the Nazirov case. The Ukraine's tax service chief was arrested this Friday night, and now the court that's supposed to hear his case is now blocked by activists because there is not a single judge in that court that can hear the pre-trial detention motion. We will follow this case closely, and this is top story for tonight. Obviously, there are just two important things to point out to foreign audience. This is the first ever biggest anti-corruption case in the history of Ukraine after the Maidan revolution. And the second important thing, this is the biggest case for newly created anti-corruption bureau in Ukraine, and not only biggest case, but always the biggest test at the moment.
Absolutely. And just some important background on Nazirov. He spent many years in the Ukrainian financial sector. In 2013, he was appointed a deputy chairman of the board of directors of Ukraine's State Food Grain Corporation and was elected to the Rada in 2014 as a member of the bloc of Petro Poroshenko. And then he was appointed to the post he held until this week, the head of the State Fiscal Service, or as we might call it, the tax chief. And he was read aloud a warrant for his arrest Friday while he was in the hospital. Is that right, Max?
Well, yeah, because there is a lot of controversy about this case because he was admitted to a hospital just 24 hours before facing an arrest warrant. And a lot of people found it suspicious because it's not a very unusual practice for Ukrainian officials who face any trouble. They are miraculously admitted to the hospital 24 hours before that. Well, you're looking at the footage from today, actually. This was the first attempt at a court to hear a pre-trial detention motion filed by anti-corruption lawyers and detectives. Unfortunately, it wasn't successful because there was not a single judge appointed for this day to, to actually look into the case. And the issue why all those, I think at the moment, around 300 people already blocking the court because they're afraid that by 11 p.m. of Kyiv time, Nazirov will be officially and legally able to walk free of the court because there is not a single judge to hear the motion. And that's the biggest concern for activists and also for all those National Anti-Corruption Bureau people who are in the court, have been in the court for hours today just trying to get this case moving. And we're actually want to show you a couple of reactions from around the Twitter about this case because there's a lot of cynicism when it comes to Nazirov case. This is actually from Anders Oslund. He's from the Atlantic Council and he's an economist, a well-known economist abroad. He says that the arrest is big, that Nazirov wasn't, very popular, not with the business people, not with obviously civil society, but a lot of people are really, really skeptical that it will proceed accordingly. This is another tweet that I really like. It's from a popular English language blogger in Ukraine, Nikolai Holmov. He says that, as expected, within 72 hours of the rightful and overdue arrest of Nasirov, the case is already falling apart due to the judiciary. Well, a day ago, yesterday, I actually talked to a very prominent anti-corruption campaigner in Ukraine, Daria Kalenyuk, and we talked about the case, what's going to happen, because Nasirov is obviously accused of misspending budget money in I think it's 2 billion.
2 billion hryvnia, 75 million US dollars grafted from the tax service in Ukraine, purportedly.
Well, you know, she told me exactly what she actually, unfortunately, she foresaw this development. She told me that it doesn't matter how good the case is by the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, because it's going to be decided in the court. And the court system is still extremely unreformed, corrupt, and probably there is a high chance that the case will collapse on the first day that the court hearing is on. So let's take a look and let's listen to what she had to say about the ongoing Nasirov case. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Actually, this is quite shocking development for not only people abroad, but for many even in Ukraine. Nobody actually, figure out on the night of the arrest that this thing would even happen. Do you think that this shocking development is really a good thing, meaning that we didn't expect, meaning that the investigation worked well, or as some critics point out, that the whole case is really haphazardly put together and there's a huge fear that it will fall apart in coming hours or days?
Well, first of all, I would like to emphasize that this is an extraordinary event in Ukraine. For 25 years of independence of Ukraine, we didn't have such a situation when the acting minister or the person on the level of the minister would be issued a notification of suspicion. And there were some detention of some senior officials, but this is the first so-called big fish. And I'm very happy that this big fish happened to be head of the fiscal service of Ukraine, Roman Nasirov. The reason for that is that there are very many questions to his agency and to the lack of reform of their customs and taxation in Ukraine. So to put it in one simple sentence, Fiscal Service of Ukraine continues to be the money laundering machine and the resource for dirty cash, which is poured into the elections.
But this is as well a huge victory, at least symbolic by now, because again, this is not the done deal. The person is not behind bars, and there is even not a major development. But this could be a major deal for newly established anti-corruption bureau, because this is their first high-profile case, and this is their first high-profile arrest. But do you think that they have enough resources? Because we've been hearing about chronic understaffing issues inside the bureau. Whether or not do you think they will be able to handle this case properly? Because again, this is quite major.
I can't assess evidence now, as I didn't look the file of the case. However, if the case will be dumped or there will be some problems with the case, I think the key reason would be the court system. And the key threat would be court system and judicial system. Because NABU alone, even NABU with anti-corruption prosecutors, they cannot convict person. They can't confiscate person. They can't even detain person without the permission of the court. And for the months which we are monitoring the activity of NABU and the procedure of cases in the courts, we see that judges are reluctant even to start hearings of the cases developed by NABU.
So they can put it together and send it to a court and lose a battle in the court.
And lose the battle in the court, not because the evidence is weak, but because the court is biased, of law integrity, the court is unprotected, the judge is afraid of political pressure, or physical pressure, and all that other stuff. So while we have new people in National Anti-Corruption Bureau, new detectives, transparently selected, transparent procedure of selection of them, head of NABU, while we have new people in anti-corruption prosecution and the same transparent selection of special anti-corruption prosecutors, we still rely on unreformed judiciary and the old and on the judges which were appointed by President Yanukovych.
Could it be a symbolic victory for anti-corruption movement, just the whole fact of the arrest, or that this person, he lost his job just because, you know, of this development, despite if they even lose in the court?
It is very symbolic, positive development. One more important argument why it is very important step forward is that Nasirov is very closely connected to President Poroshenko. So before he headed the State Fiscal Administration, he was the head of the Customs Committee from Poroshenko bloc. Before that, he was assistant of one of the members of parliament from Poroshenko bloc. Therefore, Nasirov himself appeared to head this very lucrative agency because of the political will of the president of Ukraine.
He antagonized a lot of reformers. By the way, the Odessa team and customs, very corrupt, dealing with very corrupt situation, were laid off just because of his pressure. Is that right?
Absolutely. He was attacking and undermining all possible attempts coming from reformers to change the tax administration and to tax the customs service. Therefore, he was simply protecting this very traditional corrupt system of taxation in Ukraine and of customs service. Disregarding absolute criticism of Nasirov coming from international organizations, including IMF, disregarding constant criticism of Nasirov coming from local organizations and institutions and politicians. Our organization, the Corruption Action Center, we filed a criminal case against Nasirov a year ago for him not declaring his apartments in London, right? So he is already known to be as a very big professional, but a very strong protector of corrupt interests, with ties to President Poroshenko. And for me, it's a very positive signal that NABU, disregarding that Nasirov is very close to Poroshenko, once having enough evidence, triggered the case and was ready to detain the guy.
Well, it's not actually huge news that the team of President Poroshenko, or people close to the presidential administration, there are, including by Hromadske investigative reporting, were exposed of corrupt ties or accused of corrupt activities. But at the same time, just help me with my cynicism. We still have very strong system of this, rent-seeking between oligarchs in the states. The system is corrupt. The system is placed. Some people in the inside new government or in presidential administration help to sustain the system. How did that happen? That a person who is so critically important for that system and who's so close to president suddenly is faced with an arrest? If I would be a cynic, I would say that probably he's not so much important to the ruling elites anymore. Or do you think that we're seeing the tipping balance between this anti-corruption system finally, starting working?
We are so got used to constant mistrust and constant promises coming from law enforcement officials and from politicians that we can't even imagine that it's possible that really there is independent agency which collected enough evidence to trigger case against a guy with the level of the minister, against the guy who is the head of the fiscal service of Ukraine. And I will give you one example why I think we have a positive scenario, why I think this is the case which indicates that NABU is quite independent and strong enough and motivated enough to touch untouchable.
Well, you can still keep following the developments at this court where Nasirov is, the case of Nasirov is supposed to have a first hearing. And you can go to Twitter, Hromadske Twitter at Hromadske, and actually to see the recent development and follow that.
Mm-hmm. It's really powerful images, not only from the protests, but also from the court case today, to see such a powerful government figure literally behind bars in a prostrate position. I mean, this is a chance for the Ukrainian government to capitalize on something like this and really make some change. But we'll see as things develop tonight how it all goes.
Yeah, Daria said that it's already symbolic first step, but at the same time, if the case collapses, probably the fallout from that.
Yeah, and most Ukrainians are upset, I think, that there has been no high-level prosecution yet. So this is a chance to seize on that. And if the government doesn't do that, if the courts don't do that, then it could be even further backsliding.
Well, we'll keep following the development, and you can find out on the website, on our Twitter. We will be right back after this break. Well, obviously, we keep following the main developments in the whole region of Eastern Europe. And the other story that was, quite surprising even for Eastern European wonks is appointment of new vice president in Azerbaijan. It's actually the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, appointed his wife as vice president after a successful referendum last year that actually created this position. So let's take a look at the moment when that happened earlier this month.
Today, a new period begins in Meriban's life. I am sure that she will bring her input into the development of the country. I congratulate her with this appointment and wish her new successors.
Dear Mr. President, I thank you deeply for your vote of high confidence. I fully understand the responsibility that is placed on me upon appointment to this post. I believe that I will be able to justify your confidence, Mr. President, and also the confidence of all the people who believe in me.
You know, I love our plasma here. I think, well, we tried to make it a bit lighter and funny because it's directly from the House of Cards plot of a popular TV show. But at the same time, it's quite scary for people who keep complaining about growing authoritarian regime.
Absolutely. Well, social media, of course, reacted with some biting humor. One cartoon from RFERL showed, and hopefully we can get that up. There we go. This, talks about my own country. We've got Donald Trump and Melania saying, look, he has real power. I hope we don't see that in the United States anytime soon. And a second cartoon, which is now the most viral cartoon in Azerbaijan, is maybe just a few weeks late for Valentine's Day. Love is to change the constitution for her.
Well, it's a very actually common for people in Eastern Europe to react to really kind of crushing news with a humor, and especially thanks internet. But at the same time, a number of developments that are really, really worrying. And for example, this status from a prominent Azerbaijani journalist, Khadidja Ismayilova, it grabbed my attention earlier this week. She says, I hope no will be asked about women empowerment. It's a wife empowerment, corruption empowerment, nepotism, and this is just disgusting. And that's her reaction. And when I saw that, actually, my first reaction as a foreigner was, well, this is, I mean, I know about the authoritarian regime of Aliyev, but this is a great news for a Muslim country to appoint to such a prominent position a woman. And then I saw this, status, and then I was thinking, well, what a horrible waste of historic moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really just a consolidation of what has, even up till this point, even before this, been a kind of oligarchic authoritarian regime. And not kind of, it really has been in Azerbaijan.
Well, after seeing that status, I actually, we called Khadidja to get her perspective and her views on what actually happened in Azerbaijan and helped us to understand it better. Let's take a look. Khadidja, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Well, let me start with just asking you a very simple question. For a lot of foreigners abroad, the appointment of Mehriban Aliyeva is, I think, is very similar to some kind of a House of Cards plot from the TV show, very popular. But at the same time, a lot of people keep asking whether or not there is a base, popular base for this appointment, and whether or not the country is, in general, accepts this move, which by some critics is described as a first step to building a monarchy.
Well, actually, it's in fact there is a monarchy in Azerbaijan because the power has already been inherited from father to son, and it's just they're making it de jure monarchy. And do people accept it? Actually, do people have a choice? Because people are very scared here, and they don't believe in any result of any protest in this country. Because there were some protests in regions, in Baku city, about regarding the social problems before each elections, before the referendum, and they all, even the sanctioned rallies have been suppressed, and like dozens, even hundreds have been arrested after each rally. So people are very scared, and basically there is no room for activity of civil society, and it's basically the stagnation in the civil society results the silence to this move. Yes, Mehriban Aliyeva had been doing some charity, but people also understand that the source of the money for this charity actions were corruption, and people do understand that this is not a democracy. This is not a democratic development, but do they have choice? That's a question.
I will end with one question, which is more about the foreign perspective or foreign reaction. And you've been targeted by the Azerbaijani state herself. You've been imprisoned, and now this week we had this horrible news about other prominent journalist and blogger Mehman Husseinov, who is now imprisoned on defamation charges. But the thing that strikes the most, that there is a lack of attention or even international condemnation when it comes to all those continuous violations, not only of human political rights, but also when it comes to, for example, questionable referendum last year. Why do you think that, for example, European Union or Council of Europe are not so vigorously active in condemning those acts, or even talking about possible sanctions or any instruments of influencing the increasingly authoritarian regime?
That's a very relevant question, because there is a revolving door of the prison in Azerbaijan that, well, they release one and then they arrest two, they release more, then they arrest even more, and that's because the world tolerates the system that imprisons people for their views and for their criticism. Because the world has been tolerating all these anti-democratic moves of the government, we haven't seen much response from the executive powers. So we have seen some moves from the US Congress. Congressmen called for enforcing Magnitsky Act, globally, including Azerbaijan, but then we have executive powers, the State Department and the White House being, in best case, being silent about the issues in Azerbaijan, including the referendum. When the referendum has passed, the State Department's reaction was that that was a will of the people. There was no voting here. There was no debate here regarding referendum. And the mild reaction of the world democracies, and that was Obama's period, you know. That was when Obama was a president. Now we are even less. We have even less expectations from. So why wouldn't Ilham Aliyev do that? If the world is silent, if he is still welcome in European clubs, he goes to Europe, he gets welcomed by the European politicians. They are discussing the world affairs with him. They are discussing the oil pipelines and so on. So why wouldn't he do that? What would stop him?
And from Azerbaijan, which hosted Eurovision in 2012, we come to Kiev, which is about to host Eurovision in just 2 months. In the past several weeks have been mired with controversy as 21 members of the managing team of Eurovision Ukraine have resigned. They, in their letter, said, "Hereby we, the Eurovision team, for who this contest has become not only a part of our work, but also a part of our life, officially inform that we are resigning and stopping work on preparations for the organization of the contest." The team also said that the work of their team was completely blocked. And we just decided that this was an important issue, and Hromadske journalist Volodymyr Solohub dug a bit deeper into this story. Let's take a look.
So when several weeks ago the information came that a big part of the Eurovision team was leaving, we decided, and as well as many other journalists, we decided to find out what exactly happened. Obviously, there were two sides of the story. There was a story of those who were leaving the team. They said that the new management was not being transparent. The budget and the costs which were being allocated were not. This was not being done on a competitive basis. There was no tender process, and overall the documentation and other paperwork was not transparent. The story from the new management, the team which was headed by Mr. Pavlohrytsak, they said that the real management came and they started to push up the things, to speed up the things, because they realized that almost nothing has been done, and obviously this pace of work was not satisfactory to the previous team, and that's why they decided to leave. However, whatever the reasons are, the question which we did not find the answer to was the budget of the Eurovision. The initial budget, which was supposed to be spent on the Eurovision event in general, was supposed to be 24 million, almost 24 million US dollars. Out of these 24 million, 17 million was allocated by the state, and 7 million was supposed to come as income from ticket sales, from souvenir sales, and other stuff. When the new team arrived, they increased the 24 million budget by additional 7 million. And again, the question which we could not find the answer to was where these additional 7 million US dollars would come from.
Of course, for Ukraine, it's a very important event regarding the war, regarding the attempts to actually boost the image as a more friendly to tourist destination. Unfortunately, the organizing of the whole event has been marred by a number of controversies, and we decided to set the record straight and to invite head of events team at Eurovision Ukraine, Kirill Voronin, to our studio. Welcome.
Thanks for the invitation.
I hope you will clarify some of those controversies for us, because we have a number of very controversial things to clarify.
So to begin, Kirill, we were wondering if you could just walk us through the preparation. What has been done? What is there left to do? What's the state of play?
Actually, we're now on the stage of the launching all tender procedure. We're preparing the technical requirements for each tender for my responsibility area. I mean, it's delegations, it's volunteers, it's special events, it's opening ceremony with a red carpet, it's catering. Maybe that's all, I think.
And certainly one of the kind of speed bumps along the way was the sale of tickets, which they went on sale about 3 weeks ago now. There were a lot of complaints as tickets first opened up. Certainly a lot of people were trying to get them. Eurovision is a hugely popular event, we're all aware. But there have been a lot of complaints about people not being able to get their tickets, people having payments go through but not receiving their tickets, or vice versa. And now it seems that there aren't too many tickets left at prices that normal people can afford. So can you give us an idea of what to expect further from ticket sales?
Up to now, I know that, from my information, the quantity of sold tickets, it's around 18,000. And as I know, the official ticket operator separate the parts of the tickets, and they selling them step by step. So, to be frankly speaking, I think that everyone who wants to get to the arena, they will afford the tickets which will be sold in the nearest future.
So there will be more tickets released.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out to the story of the build that they did an investigation on the days of when the sales started. And not only a lot of people, especially in Germany, weren't able to access the website. Then they did a story which they called Ticket Chaos regarding the ticket sales in Eurovision, saying that a lot of tickets were actually, I mean, it's not surprising that it's a popular event. A lot of tickets were sold out right away. But then now you can actually buy on some intermediary sites tickets for 300, 200 euros compared to the price of original of 600 euros. Would you consider it as a huge problem for organizers, because a lot of people, a lot of future visitors are upset with the way the ticket sales were handled?
As I know, the concert UA put the block to buy more than 4 tickets per one transaction. So I think I don't think it's actually a problem, because I hope that everyone who wants to buy it, they will buy it. Maybe there is no law which prohibits a person buy the ticket for itself and then just sell it for friends, or I don't know about that.
But you would recommend that concert goers only buy tickets through Concert UA, correct?
Yeah, of course. It's official ticket, so the best way to get to the arena is to buy ticket on the official partner.
And more recently, in the past week or so, the hosts for the Eurovision contest were announced. And for the first time in the history of the contest, which is quite a long and storied history, we have 3 male hosts. And Max and I were talking about this before the show. The motto for Eurovision 2017 is Celebrate Diversity. How, in your opinion, do 3 male hosts encapsulate that motto?
I think we will add some girls for the red carpet ceremony and the official opening ceremony. So I think we will make the gender balance in this contest.
Well, I think that a lot of people misread the official motto of Eurovision as Celebrate Diversity as something else. So this is Guy Lodge, he's an editor at British magazine Variety. And, a lot of people reacted the same way, seeing 3 white male representing an event which is, celebrating diversity and celebrates queer culture in particular as something that is very surprising and for some people quite upsetting. But obviously, we got assurances that probably along the way there's going to be more diversity. I have a small question about the budget, because it's an important thing about the change of team management that happened very abruptly, and a lot of people got really concerned. They left with a very harsh statement saying that basically they weren't in line with new policies of expanding budgets. They had questions to it. There is a lack of transparency provided to them about this budget, so that's why they all resigned and left right in the middle of preparing the show. How that thing affected the preparation, and who was responsible for letting all those people go? I'm pretty sure it is affecting the preparation process.
Actually, about the budget was from the state it was 455.7 millions, and from the city administration it's 200 millions. There is no change in budget.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Just making sure.
Yeah. The budget is not changed, so we are still working with this budget. Regarding to your question about why the team resigned. Actually, I have yet no time to investigate this, and I really don't know what to I don't want to do this because really the people now, my team, are working for 18 hours per day. So I think the preparing process of events are not moved by overall time schedule. Yes, there are a lack of time. It's tough to react on everything what pops up, but we are.
But your budget will not be increased, as I understand now.
No.
So it's going to be.
I will say even more. We're trying to decrease it.
Cut it back. Okay. Well, this is a question that's actually a very important question about external communications, because, boy, I get a lot of messages almost every day from people writing to me. I don't know why, because I'm not official Eurovision representative, but they keep asking a lot of questions about organizing, about they have visa troubles, they have questions about, how about the general situation in Kiev and so on and so on. And a lot of them complain that there is no official Twitter account even for Eurovision for now. There is an official page, but the communication in English is not sufficient. There is no spokesperson who can actually answer even foreign reporters' requests. I got one from foreign reporter just yesterday asking me about Eurovision. And again, I'm not official spokesperson. Why is that there's no progress on that front 2 months before the Eurovision? Why so many people have so many questions that supposed to be answered by your team?
Actually, all external communication from my team is, I think, on a high level, because we are trying to respond to every request which we receive. But I can't answer you about the overall external communication, just because it's not my responsibility area at all. So we're really focused in our events department. So I can say.
But there's a person who cares about this
more
than all of us. What is happening? Why don't we have a straight line communication with the outside world from the Ukrainian Eurovision at the moment?
I think that we have, for example, right now, the straight communication from the event department to everyone who want to know something. I got a Facebook, I got a mail, so I will answer every request.
Well,
it's about me.
Tell your colleagues, please.
I will ask.
Please relieve me of some responsibilities to answer those questions.
Well, and certainly just because it's an opportunity for Ukraine to establish that direct connection, not only as a badge of honor for Ukrainians, but establishing warm relations with the rest of Europe and Australia. Let's not forget them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to end with a simple, maybe not simple, but very important question about the security. Because obviously, Eurovision is not only about music, it's not only about entertainment, it's also a very important LGBTI event. And there are a lot of people, queer people who are traveling to Ukraine. And they have quite reasonable concerns about the security situation, because Kiev is one of the is not famous for being one of the safest places for gay people in Europe. So what does your team do regarding the communication or work or any special ties to the law enforcement in Ukraine? Do you have any special plan, or do you work with them closely regarding the issue of protecting your LGBT visitors?
First of all, I want to make an accent on that Kyiv has a concept, safe and nice. And the Kyiv city administration and my team are really following this rule. We're preparing the safety all our areas, official areas, and I think all city official zones and overall city will be safe to everyone who will visit this country and this city and this contest. But it's not all about the contest. I think it's the overall policy of Kyiv. Eurovision is held in Kyiv, and this city is safe and nice. So I think everyone
It
will
wants to be safe and nice because it's not safe and nice in reality, especially for gay people.
I don't hear about nothing about the some kind of the unfriendly attention to someone who has their own orientation.
Well, as a gay man, I can tell you that there's a lot of attention like that to unfriendliness. But no, I'm just wondering to get a question to the answer to the question about the task force, maybe with the law enforcement between Eurovision. Is there a clear plan?
Yeah, we're working on it. The safety is the first issue which are in our focus, but for safety for everyone who will visit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have all our questions asked. Thank you so much for clarifying the situation, and we will absolutely keep following the development with Eurovision. It's again not only a music entertainment event; it's also geopolitically important for all following politics in Eastern Europe. Surprisingly enough, so we will come back right after this break. Stay with us. We'll now proceed to another important security question. Obviously, Eurovision or not, the situation in Eastern Ukraine keeps escalating, and unfortunately, we don't see as peaceful situation over there. So we have a recent, actually, update from OSCE, Nina. Yes?
Yeah, more than 3 years since the annexation of Crimea and the invasion of Eastern Ukraine, the violence has been continuing, as Max said. And OSCE is reporting another spike just this week, despite the Minsk II agreement and another ceasefire, which was agreed upon at Munich a couple of weeks ago. We've seen neither the withdrawal of heavy weapons or disengagement from both sides.
And can I ask our producers to put up a couple of tweets from OSCE monitoring missions? This is from their February statement, Friday statement, I'm sorry. And they actually, keep saying about the increased violence. Both sides violate ceasefire, and this number is actually concerning. 250% increase in artillery explosions, 12-fold increase in mortar explosions. Well, overall, there's a situation on the front line, and then the situation on the occupied territories by Russian-backed separatists and Russian troops. 113 people were captured by separatist forces in eastern Ukraine at the moment, according to first deputy chairman of the Verkhovna Rada, Irina Gerashchenko. She's responsible for the issue of hostages. And some of them are actually detained for more than a year, with the conflict going on into its third year. One of those stories is of a prominent Ukrainian scientist and archaeologist. He has been detained for almost 400 days to the date. He wasn't he wasn't a politician, he wasn't a combatant, but at the same time, there is still lack of information what is happening with him in detention. Earlier, we spoke with his nephew, and he gave us update on the situation, which is very important to kind of get the idea of what is happening to all those dozens of people who are hostages right now in the separatist-held eastern Ukraine. Let's take a look.
People from both sides of the front line, all of them want peace. Not just peace agreements, but peace as a repose, some kind of calm. This situation is very exhausting. It doesn't allow people to relax.
Your uncle is a famous scientist, theologist, somebody who knows all kind of the spiritual practice from Donetsk, and he is detained for more than a year in Donetsk now. So can you really tell us his story? How long is he there?
As you said, he's a well-known person, especially in scientific circles, in the world of religious organizations. He visited United States of America for several times and made lectures there in several states. And by the way, he's an honorable citizen of Oklahoma State, for example. And he has a few awards from different countries for his scientific and humanitarian activities. He met Pope Paul II and the main rabbi of Israel. He's not only the scientist, not a theologist and culturologist, but he's a person who always tried to establish a dialogue between different religions, and it was one of his main goals. And he was successful in these goals, actually. And we know that in Donetsk, representatives almost all confessions and religions, they usually meet at his roundtable conference.
So what happened? So he's so for how long is he detained? What's happening to him? What we know?
We know that
he's 63, so he's he's known for that since Soviet times.
He was captured on 27th of January 2016. And since then, we didn't have possibility to meet him, not the members of the family, nobody. We only know that he was captured by so-called MGB, Ministry of State Defense in Donetsk People Republic, also so-called. And we know that he's in prison in Donetsk, and probably this is all facts that we know for 100%.
How do you know if there were any tortures or something like that, of that kind?
Yes, we know that in the beginning, in the first month, there were tortures for sure. They tried to make him say that he is a spy or whatever they try to make him say. I don't know for sure, but we know the fact.
Everyone is scared of what is going to happen tomorrow. They are afraid of indeterminism. What is anxiety? It is more than fear. You know what you fear, but you feel anxiety when you can't control your future. People don't know what is going to happen. So people are afraid of the unpredictability.
Do you have a chance to talk to him?
Yes, we talked for a few times by phone last year. It was a short period when he was allowed to call, but I think this finished at the beginning of December, so we didn't hear a word from him starting from the beginning of December last year.
Of course, the Ukrainian state isn't somebody who really can argue for the Ukrainian citizens in Donetsk, as it's really wouldn't do much good. It's also a bit of the risk to make it very strong, appeal from the Ukrainian public.
Yes.
So what do you think could be done still at this stage?
I think the only way to make him free, to set him free, is to put this question not in the Minsk meeting, but in a Normand format. So we try to get attention from international media. We made a press briefing for international informational agencies such as Reuters and Associated Press, and we ask all journalists that we know personally to share this information and try to make it as loud as we can, because we think it's the only way this information could be on the level of Normand format.
If we want to have a dialogue, we need to get rid of all the standard words and phrases. We need to live in a valued environment. What are the common values for everybody? Peace, good life and health, and a constructive dialogue which gives us some perspective. We all should be orientated towards our values.
Well, now we're taking you to the Balkans and to the story, which, in my opinion, is one of the least covered in the region and least most underrated. It's about the Montenegro and its accession to NATO, but most importantly to the involvement of foreign powers into recent coup attempt in this country, which is, a step from becoming new NATO member. So we talked this week to Tim Judah, which is acclaimed journalist that has been covering the Balkans for 20 years, and he's with The Economist. And we asked him, try to help us to clarify what has actually happened with that botched coup attempt in Montenegro, what's the Russia's role was in it, and at this point, why Montenegro is so eager to join NATO despite all the warnings that it has been given from other foreign powers. Let's take a look.
What I wanted to ask you, first of all, basically, to simplify, there are two ways to explain what happened in Montenegro last year. On one hand, we hear that it could be a real plot, anti-governmental plot, organized by Democratic Front, and on the other hand, we hear that it might be in the interest of Milo Djukanovic to have all this story in order to battle the opponents. Yeah. Which explanation is more trustworthy? How do you see this picture, the whole picture?
Well, I have to say that really nothing is very clear about this at all, and that people in Montenegro and in Serbia are really kind of, and very informed people are really divided completely in two about this. There is one side that think that the whole thing was a plot mounted by Milo Djukanovic to gather more votes at the middle of the election, because this happened right on election day. So the idea was, they say that this was a sort of theatre mounted by him, that people had been paid to do this. And many of the people may not even have known what they were involved with. That it was just at the top that people were paid, and that this was a plot to, as I say, get people out to vote, because essentially the election on the 16th of October was really about NATO, because Montenegro was on the point of joining NATO, but the government decided not to have a referendum on this question, so the election turned into that question, and Milo Djukanovic wanted, obviously, to sort of to win, and one half of the people that I know, that people who talk about these things, think that this whole thing was a complete fake. On the other hand, there are people who think there was something genuine here, and they point to the fact that, okay, the people in Montenegro, some 20 people who had come from Serbia, were arrested, but perhaps more significantly, 2 Russians were arrested in Serbia, and then some days later, Nikolai Patrushev, a former senior intelligence operative, or a former senior intelligence agent from Russia, who still occupies an important post in the administration, came to Belgrade, and allegedly, we don't really know for sure, but allegedly those 2 people were taken away with him, and these are the 2 people now, in the last few days, that the Montenegrins say, well, they always said that these 2 Russians were involved, but they never said that they were doing this on behalf of the state. But now, on the 17th of February, the state prosecutor says they were working for the state, and obviously he wants them arrested, and there are Interpol warrants for their arrest. It's quite possible, of course, that the story is kind of somewhere between the two, that there was kind of some Russian involvement. That's possible. It seems a bit of a strange plot, because a lot of the people were quite amateurish. They weren't very serious people, but it's quite possible that the Montenegrin authorities knew that something was happening, and it was just convenient to sort of arrest them and to make a show on the day of the election. So we don't really know for sure. That's what we know.
Mm-hmm. And if we go aside from this story, but generally, who are the main agents for Kremlin's influence in Montenegro? Who are these people?
Montenegro itself is really quite a divided, and historically quite a divided society. Well, certainly in the last sort of 10, 20 years. So what you have amongst people who are Orthodox, so that I'm leaving out the minorities, Muslim minority, I'm leaving out Albanians. The vast majority of people are Orthodox. But then those people are divided between people who identify themselves as ethnic Montenegrins and those people who identify themselves as ethnic Serbs. So what happens is that Montenegrins always kind of perceive the sort of threat from Serbia and think, for example, we must join NATO because who knows, in the future we could be like Ukraine and Serbia might be a friend, but who knows, in the future it might attack us like Russia attacked Ukraine, and therefore we must join NATO. Serbs, on the other hand, tend to be those who were against the independence of Montenegro, and therefore also against NATO. So there is this kind of division. So Serbs will kind of automatically, because of these historical past and these political divisions, will kind of look much more towards Russia as a friend, while Montenegrins will tend to see it as possibly a threat. Then, of course, you've got quite close church links, NGOs. There are always allegations that friendly parties are paid for or supported somehow by Moscow, but those things are never provable.
Which party?
Well, for example, the Democratic Front now, but we don't know whether that's true, but this is just an accusation.
Well, it has been a very harsh week in the Caucasus regarding media freedoms. Earlier this week, Mehman Husseinov was detained. It's a very prominent Azerbaijani blogger and journalist. He was sentenced to 2 years in jail on defamation charges. It's a very very painful blow to the civil rights civil society in Azerbaijan.
And this is the first time in Azerbaijan that someone's actually been charged for something like this, I think. Yeah, and a blogger that I read said something to the effect of, because of this charge, now all bets are off, essentially. Aliyev can do whatever he wants. The gloves are off, essentially, right?
Exactly. But you can expect that from Azerbaijan. But what happened in Georgia around the same time shocked a lot of people. Following the Supreme Court decision, the ownership of the biggest opposition voice in the broadcasting in Georgia, Rustavi 2, was handed over to the previous owner, and it endangered the fate of a lot of journalists who keep working at Rustavi 2, which is, again, one of the biggest critics of the government at the moment. So we really decided to talk to a person from civil society of Georgia to figure out what actually happened. And I talked earlier today with Levan Asatiani. He's Amnesty International campaigner on Eurasia, and he's Georgian and prominent human rights defender from there. Let's take a look. Thanks, Levan, for joining us and helping us to explain and to get a better idea, clearer idea what is happening in Georgia over this week. So I'm going to start by pointing out to the statement of 21 non-governmental organizations that was released a couple of days ago, and it has a very strong signal of condemnation what happened with Rustavi 2 and the takeover following the Supreme Court decision. And it says basically that all those organizations and non-governmental people, they think that this decision damages not only the further democratic development of Georgia, but limits freedom of media, pluralistic media environment, and threatens Euro-Atlantic integration process. I want to start by hearing your assessment, whether or not you agree with the civil society in Georgia with that kind of a harsh statement on the Rustavi 2 takeover.
Well, I think the whole dispute over the ownership of the Rustavi 2 channel does indeed raise concerns over the right to freedom of expression in Georgia, and could indeed jeopardize media pluralism in the country. Now, I think we can all agree that we should hold Georgia accountable to a very high standard, largely because this country is the island within the region where actually freedom of speech and freedom of expression and media pluralism has more or less been respected. And I believe the concerns that the civil society has in Georgia, that this whole lawsuit against Rustavi has been politically motivated, is rather credible. And there are three main factors that actually lead to this assessment. Now, the first is that high officials from the Georgian government have in the past openly expressed support in favor of the former shareholder, the shareholder who actually brought the lawsuit, while the shareholder himself has openly endorsed the current government's policies on many issues. Second issue is that the Georgian NGOs who were monitoring the trials and the developments, the court hearings and the developments around the case, have said that the lower instance courts lacked clear and consistent legal argumentation in their decisions, and there were also some procedural violations. And thirdly, in 2016, as the court, as the case was still ongoing in the courts, threats were made against the current executive director of Rustavi 2, and as he claimed, these were the threats by the security services of Georgia, blackmailing him with release of covertly filmed videos.
Levan, there is no doubt that there is a lack of transparency for the whole process, but look, what strikes me the most in this case is this that both sides, civil society and international allies, regarding the situation in Georgia, regarding, as you rightly point out, that it's a poster example for the post-Soviet world, tying to the process of Euro integration. The balance is very tricky one, because at one point you see those statements from civil society saying that there's lack of transparency, that the decision is not of high quality, but on the other hand, you have statements from U.S. Embassy and EU mission saying that the most important thing at this point is not to damage the credibility of the justice system in Georgia and not to undermine it. How do you balance those two important things?
Well, I think largely because of the lack of transparency and because of the concerns that were made by the civil society, these concerns seem quite credible. To a certain degree, the image of the judiciary in Georgia has been damaged, unfortunately, and this has been further reinforced by the very recent decision of the European Court of Human Rights, which actually decided to endorse the interim measures on the case of Rustavi 2 and urged the Georgian government to actually not execute the judgment of the Supreme Court of Georgia until the European Court of Human Rights has the time to look into the case. Now, the European Court does not often resort to this type of interim measures. This means that the court could have some preliminary doubts on how the case was dealt in Georgia. In the long term and in the short term, that will damage the credibility of judiciary in the country. And this is why it is extremely important that now the Georgian government does everything possible to ensure that the legal dispute that is still ongoing, because the Constitutional Court of Georgia should also look into this now, as well as the European Court of Human Rights, that this legal dispute continues without any type of political pressure or any type of external influences whatsoever.
So tell me, is this the way out, in your opinion, from this whole mess? Just making sure that the transition, whatever it is, whether to former owner or to the team of journalists, is transparent and is in line with law, or what other creative solutions can be to this really deadlocked situation?
Well, I think yes. The most important thing is that the authorities in Georgia should ensure that this dispute is dealt as a legal dispute without any type of external or political pressures. And therefore, they should create an environment in which it will be hard to perceive that there is some type of political pressure on the judges or some types of statements made by the government officials that could actually be considered as statements encouraging a particular side of the dispute. In addition, they must investigate the alleged threats that were made against the management of Rustavi 2 in 2016 when the case was ongoing. And by effectively investigating those threats, they could actually prove that they're willing to create the environment in which the judiciary can be independent, impartial, and actually make an independent and impartial judgment on this very tricky case.
Levan, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us and explaining us the situation.
Thank you.
Well, I do want to encourage you to go on Hromadske website and .hromadske.ua for all the expanded versions of all those interviews you've seen during the show, and also follow the Twitter for clips and recent developments regarding Eastern Europe and Ukraine.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Nina Yankovic.
And I'm Maxim Aristavi. Thanks for sticking around, and you will see a Sunday show, a new version next week. Until then, have a nice week and good night.